Wow, that's the worst advice to give to anyone in real estate, because that's what everybody tries to do, and that's what keeps them stuck in low six figures, right? Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Team Building Podcast. It's Matt Johnson. I'm your surprise co-host for today, and I'm with, as always, the man, the myth, the legend. We're doing it old school today. Jeff Cohn, what's up?
Hey, Matt Johnson. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing awesome. I'm enjoying life in this cloudy, overcast world, terrible, terrible place called San Diego. I know it's rough, but I appreciate your sympathy. That's what I really like about you, is you really feel my pain.
Matt shared this with me off air, and I felt so bad for him. I am in good weather. We're in Omaha in June. June's great. You don't want to be in the Midwest in the winter. It gets pretty nasty. And you know what? I think San Diego had a rough winter. I mean, there was a lot of snow across the country in places that never see snow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we got it in terms of rain and overcast. So basically, it's felt like living in, I don't know, Portland.
Again,
that's
supposed to be 5 months. So horrible.
Yeah, I know. All right. We've got a few things to talk about. We're going to talk about the podcast. You just got done with the Team Building Summit, which is the last, essentially the last iteration of that event. So we'll talk about that for a little bit, maybe talk about podcast numbers, where the podcast is going, and then just a little bit about Ceiling for Success, because obviously, ERS is building a platform that anyone in any brokerage can tap into, but you really have to have a vision that's bigger than essentially what anyone else has put out there, right? Even the vision that's put forward in Gary Keller's book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, we were joking around before we recorded. The vision of that book was that, okay, great, you get to be the CEO of your own real estate team, and you make a percentage of all the sales of the agents underneath you. And that's essentially where that vision stopped. And that's a great vision. And there's still people out there that are still chasing that dream, trying to make that a reality, and can't, haven't been able to pull it off.
The irony,
coming up with a platform that makes that even easier and goes beyond that.
Sure. The irony is the person that writes the book, MREA, who is probably has had one of the greatest success stories in the history of the world for building and scaling a real estate company, isn't teaching people to build and scale real estate companies. So it's interesting. Like, if you build a widget and that's what makes you a billionaire, wouldn't you write a book about how to help teach people to, make a widget to make them a billionaire? And that's not what he did. And he didn't do that because not all of us are set up to become billionaires, and not all of us want that, right? What most people want is time. They want they want freedom. They want the ability to do what they want to do, not work if they don't have to. And that's the beauty behind the MREA book, which I'm still a big believer in that ideology. And that's exactly in line with what you were talking about, why this podcast exists, why ERS's future offering that we will not unveil today. We've teased it a few times. We will be talking about it in the fourth quarter. We can talk about bits and pieces of it. And it's what we have already talked about. It's true leaders serve their followers by giving them the information, empowering them, teaching them, training them, and holding them accountable to doing the things necessary to become just like them. Well, what have I become? As you kind of pointed out, we have a brokerage in Nebraska. We have every vertical: mortgage, title, insurance, property management, investing, development, and the list goes on and on. And the thing that's been really hard for me, Matt, and I know you're a big influencer as well in your space, is it's teaching people how to do something and then have them not do it and have them give the reason that they're too busy. It's very frustrating because it is hard. We are busy. We all juggle a million things, but we have the exact same amount of time. So what's the difference between Gary, Jeff Cohn, Matt Johnson? We're all the same. The difference is one's willingness to advance and one's willingness to take a step back, to take a step forward. And you do that through leverage. And a lot of people are scared to create leverage because it's hard. It's very hard to replace your highest income producing activity. But when you can replace your highest income producing activity, you then ask yourself, what's my next highest? What's my next highest? What's my next highest? And that's where
there's an interesting quote that came across my radar on Instagram the other day, and it was supposed to be inspirational. I looked at it and I'm like, I don't think that's saying what you think it is. And it was a quote by Jerry Seinfeld about how he micromanaged every aspect of the show. And that was supposed to be inspirational in terms of, like, he was basically saying, like, look, the only way is the hard way. I had to literally micromanage every aspect of that show. And my first thought when I was looking at that was like, wow, that's the worst advice to give to anyone in real estate, because that's what everybody tries to do. And that's what keeps them stuck in low six figures, right? They try to micromanage every part of the process, and they end up on a perpetual 100-hour week hamster wheel for the next 40 years of their life.
And you said in real estate, that's in everyone's vertical,
in most industries. Yeah. It may apply if you're running a sitcom where the timing of comedy is so incredibly hard to get down. I totally get it. Maybe you have to micromanage a sitcom, but yeah, if you're talking about a business trying to get it to 7 figures, you have to let go of nearly everything.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and I agree with you 100%. You know, a lot of people pride themselves in our. I lived in Brazil for 2 years when I was 19 to 21, and I couldn't believe how relaxed everyone was in the areas I lived. They didn't have a lot of money. They spent a lot of their time sitting, talking, enjoying their family. And in our culture, it's all about work, 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 work. We work 80-hour weeks. We pride ourselves on it. When I ask you, how you doing, man? You busy? I want to hear you're busy and you're running, and then I'm busy and I'm running, and we're so busy we can't even talk. It's been a year since I talked to you. People operate it like that. And I pride myself on being the guy that's sitting on the porch, drinking a lemonade or whatever it is, and just relaxing. And I want to create mental space that allows for me to respond that way. So if Matt Johnson, my old Omaha, Nebraska friend who gets to live in San Diego, comes to Omaha and says, Jeff, I'm in town for a couple hours. Do you want to go grab a lemonade? I can say, yeah, Matt, I have time. Let's go do it. And I've built a world that gives me the space. There's a biblical reference which I bring up with Matt all the time because his dad was a pastor. And it's the, what is it? The story of the Good Samaritan. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't recognize why the Samaritan was so unique. The fact that he chose to help the person that was in need wasn't what was unique. All of us can help someone in need and just throw them some money. Like when you see somebody on the street asking for money, what was unique was that they chose to take the time out of their life and go walk to a hotel, buy them a meal, get them a hotel room. Like how many of us have thrown money in a little jar in San Diego? You have lots of those jars.
Yes, we do.
And then how many of us have actually said, you know what, hop in my car. I'm going to take you to a home. I'm going to get you a bath. I'm going to get you a hotel room. I'm going to buy you a meal. I'm going to give you a gift card. And you actually take it that far. And the whole idea behind it, I heard a sermon one day, and it was that the Samaritan had created space in his life to be able to serve at a higher level. And how many of us as fathers, brothers, business leaders have created enough space that when someone in our world needs us, we can show up like the Good Samaritan showed up?
Yeah, it's very true. Most people don't because they're stuck in the minutia of stuff, which is unfortunate. You know, you have to let go of that urge to micromanage and really limit yourself, because this is something that you've done. I've watched you do it over the time I've known you for 8 years, which it sounds insane and ridiculous. You're really good at figuring out just the top 2 or 3 things you're really good at and spending as much time as you possibly can kind of in that zone of genius, and then surrounding yourself with other people that do the rest of the stuff. Not that those things are beneath you, just that, there's just no reason to spend much time outside of your zone of genius, because that's the only way to push yourself forward. And this goes back to kind of what we're talking about in terms of what your ceiling for your success is. If your vision of your own success ceiling is very high, you will naturally gravitate towards that kind of approach. You will gravitate towards, hey, I want to spend more time in the stuff that pushes me further, faster. If you have kind of a low ceiling vision of your own success, you're perfectly okay being stuck and down in the minutia. So I think for people to really get the vision that you are putting out there with the stuff that's going to come out and the stuff that you've talked about for years, they've got to raise their own vision of what their success ceiling is.
Mm-hmm. 100%. You said it great. I think about what has motivated me, because if I'm an audience member, I'm listening to this podcast or I'm watching somewhere, and you think about the successful people in the world that you look up to, what made them successful? It was obviously all the activity that they did to get to that point, but why did they get to that point? How did they see themselves? You think I like The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, the 10 series, docuseries on Netflix is one of my favorites. I've watched it twice. And what I love so much about it is that such a young man, he was so young in high school, right? He doesn't make the senior varsity team. In college, he wasn't a star player. He really didn't come out until his rookie year in the NBA, or even his senior year, maybe in college, to be like this incredible player. And then he had to prove himself. And the thing that I love, that I watch, and I think we all can find parallels and identify, it's the way he dreamed. It wasn't enough to just have one championship. Now he needs a second. Now he needs a third. And if you guys watch the series, after the 10th episode, the very last interview with Michael Jordan, you're 10 hours into this thing, and they ask him, what's one of your biggest regrets? And he sits there and he's like, I wondered if we could go for 7. And if you want to know who is a winner never thinks they've won. Mm-hmm. That's the difference. They've never won, because life isn't about a finish line. I've said this a lot in the past. I haven't said it for a while, but everyone thinks of themselves as a race. Every year you're in this in real estate, right? You have a race. You could be the number 1 team in your office, number 1 in your city, number 1 in your real estate brokerage. Well, the race keeps starting over and over and over again if you're looking at it that way. I would rather that the race is a race that will never end until you leave this existence. Hopefully there's another existence right after this, but you leave this existence, that's when it ends. So what's our goal? to me, our goal should be to become the best version of ourselves in every area. The Millionaire Real Estate Agent book that we talked about, now we've said it twice. On the top right corner, it says, it's not about the money, it's about being the best you can be. And I've changed the word to, instead of being, using a verb, becoming. So it's not about the money, it's about becoming the best you can be. But you never will become the best, because whatever you are today, you can improve on.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Your vision expands. The further you get along, the more your vision expands and you realize there's further to go.
And I think
one of the things that I admire.
100%. And I think one of the things I've learned the most in my journey, we're all at a different stage, is that the greatest level of advancement isn't ones and zeros in a bank account. It's not the things we acquire. For me personally, it's the impact I can create in my network. And that could be on the podcast, that could be my family, that could be my businesses that I own. But that's what fulfills me the most. And if you can create impact that's getting positive results for the people that choose to follow you and implement the things you teach, or be able to take advantage of the businesses you've created, that has been the most fulfilling part of my journey. In the beginning, it was being a millionaire. Like, I'll be honest with the audience. Like when I was 22, 23, I had a baby. At 23, I was married, had a college degree, had lived in Brazil for 2 years. I just wanted to have wealth. I wanted the freedom that wealth provided. Once I had that freedom, I could have stopped selling real estate. I could have stopped working altogether and just lived off the residual revenue, but that wasn't fulfilling. So I had to find, where does wealth and fulfillment meet? And a lot of us listening today might be looking for the wealth, but once the wealth comes, you're not fulfilled. Wealth does not fulfill you. So you have to find that fulfillment piece as well.
Yeah, that might be the title of the podcast right there, where wealth and fulfillment meet. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit, and you can take this any direction you want, because I want to give you a chance to talk about either where the podcast is going and why people should be watching on YouTube as well, or we can talk a little bit about the Team Building Summit and why that's changing direction a little bit. So where do you want to go?
Let's do both. So we'll start with the podcast. Up to this point, Matt and I launched this podcast. That was before I even owned a company called Elite Real Estate Systems, which we have now, which is federally trademarked, by the way. Oh, I don't have my little federal trademark thing, which would be the little R. But before we had that, we launched this podcast in 2015, which also has a federal trademark. Matt, I don't even know if I've told you that. The Team Building Podcast with Jeff Cohn. No one else can. No, yeah, we have a federal trademark on that too. I've been federal trademark happy with all of the business entities. Yeah. So we launched it and called it the Team Building Podcast. This was Matt's idea. I thought we should do the Real Estate Team Building Podcast. Matt's like, hey, let's not just do that. And you put it out there. This is in like 2015, 2016. He's like, what if you end up coaching teams on mortgage or insurance or whatever? And so today we actually are offering, starting July 1st. And this is public now. We announced this at the Team Building Summit. Starting July 1, we will be coaching, group coaching and one-on-one coaching investors, mortgage teams, title teams, insurance teams, property management teams. And I said insurance. So mortgage, title, insurance, property management. And we already have investing and we have real estate teams. So when someone searches team building, if you go on to any podcast app and you go search team building, we are coming up number one in like every search, obviously, because we're called the Team Building Podcast. I think that probably helps. And we have a lot of longevity and we work with you guys. And of course you do an amazing job. We've had 6 million listens today. We average about 250,000 listens a year. Each episode's averaging about 5,000 to 15,000 listens, depending on the guest and the topic that we cover. But the whole idea was started off with teaching teams how to build and scale. Now it's teaching not just real estate teams. Teaching real estate teams how to build and scale. Now it's teaching all 6 of those verticals that run parallel to the real estate transaction how to build and scale, which has been very exciting.
Yeah, it's amazing. And for anybody that's listening, if you've been like most of the audience for the show is on the audio side, which is amazing, right? Like that's where a lot of the downloads come from. But Jeff has an amazing studio. So we're shifting things up to coincide with YouTube jumping into podcasting. And we're going to start helping push more people over onto that platform. So you can watch the Team Building Podcast on YouTube. It's there and it's always been there. Because Jeff, you mentioned it, we launched it together as a series of Google Hangouts. So we've always been there on YouTube.
Yeah, we have.
But now that you have
and they're still there, by the way.
And they're still there.
If you search,
they're still there, the original.
My voice has changed 18 octaves. I'm like a lot lower. If you go back to the older version, I swear I spoke just like this. It's hilarious, dude. Seriously, you got to go check it out. It's hilarious. I sound like a totally different person.
You were probably much more nervous, less settled with what you've achieved. I would imagine that's probably a big part of it.
It's scary, man. Yeah,
it is scary.
And here's another little thing I like to share with people, especially with Matt being on. And this has been, like you mentioned, 8 years. No one like appointed me to be the voice for teams. Like no one came to me or sent me a letter saying, Jeff, you know what? You have qualified as the team building expert. You are going to start a podcast. Like I just decided to do it. And I decided to do it because I wanted to help other teams. We had so much demand of people asking questions and getting me on podcasts. I'm like, you know what? Let's just do our own podcast. Like I got tired of the questions people asked. I felt like they were asking the wrong questions. And so Matt and I were like, let's just start a podcast. You can go out there and interview whoever you want. You'll ask all the questions. It's been awesome. It's been a fun journey. Wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. The second piece to your question, and I know we have to wrap soon. The Team Building Summit will soon become the Elite Real Estate Systems Summit. And the focus won't just be real estate teams. Our next summit, which will be probably August or September of 2024, is going to be a summit focused on building and scaling your real estate teams, as well as building and scaling your mortgage team, title team, insurance team, property management team, investment teams. And so our intention will be that the first day will be all about the vertical you come for, all focused on whatever the vertical is you come to the event for. And then day two will bring together all of the thought leaders, keynote speakers, and you'll get to learn about all the other verticals. So you'll get to hear from one of the top speakers in the country about mortgage or insurance or title. And most importantly, not only will you learn how those verticals work, you'll learn how to become an owner of one of those verticals so you can own that vertical in your given state by either partnering with us or launching it out on your own.
Love it. That's awesome, man. We got to work on the name. ERS Summit, Elite Real Estate System Summit. It's a mouthful. We're
not sure yet. ERS Summit is probably what we'll call it. Formerly known as the Team Building Summit. Right. If you want a link to the YouTube video, of course, you can just YouTube Team Building Podcast. But if you go out to the eliterealestatesystems.com and click on podcast, we give you like 5 or 6 different links that you can go to, one of which is YouTube, if you want to grab all of these episodes. And we've recorded, 260, I think we're at. Episodes, and they're all recorded like this. And I think a lot of the listeners I bet most of our listeners have never even watched a YouTube video and don't even know that these all are on video. And we have
I would bet that
most people are listening. That's totally fine. But if you ever do have a minute, you want to throw it on a screen, play them in the background in your office. I've heard of a lot of people taking advantage of it. The content's evergreen. I mean, the things we talked about, even in 2015, I was on recently looking at some of the stuff. It's applicable today. There's no difference. The market changes, the processes, the systems, the patterns, the culture, the lead gen. A lot of it has stayed very consistent.
Yeah, I would say the only thing that's changed is just, sometimes the lead generation landscape has changed. You could say a little bit from time to time. I would say that's the only thing that's fluctuated in the entire time you and I've been working together was what does it take to generate the leads and how well do some of those things work in different market timeframes. That's the only thing. Everything else, all the back end system stuff, nothing's changed. You could watch episodes from 2015 and they're just as valuable today. Anyway, let's wrap things up.
I'll have people show up at events and they'll be like, dude, you have no idea, but like, I just watched 260 of your episodes in the last 3 months. And they're just like looking like they're like all dazed. And that's a great compliment to me because of course they're finding value. I had someone recently come up and say, in 3 months of watching your episodes, I learned more than a year of coaching with XYZ coaching company.
Right.
And I was like, wow, well, thank you. That's a really big compliment. But really, we do give away, like, if you have the time to go through 260 episodes, it's all the content. I mean, most of it's there in some format, but we would love to invite you. If you've made it this far on this episode, check out our team building coaching. We have group coaching that we offer for $1,000 a month. It's 4 1-hour sessions, 1 with me, 3 with Andy Cuny. We offer those every Thursday, 11:15 Central. And then that gives you access unlimited to your agents for the Monday, Wednesday agent training, investor training. And then in July, we'll be offering the mortgage, insurance, and property management. All that's included for the $1,000 a month. And then we also offer one-on-one coaching on top of that for $1,000 a month. So if you want more information about that, access to the podcast, access to future events, we are hosting a team building workshop at the end of July 17th, 18th, and the 19th. Go out to eliterealestatesystems.com. There's links to all of this, or growwithers.com.
Awesome. All right. That's all the time we've got today, Jeff. Thank you so much. It's been a blast.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you, brother.